You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop, the show that's a little bit of everything with a K-pop twist. Visit 17caratkpop.weebly.com for more information about the show. That's 17caratkpop.weebly.com. Enjoy the show! Hello everybody and welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. Super excited today to talk about Kai's debut album and music video and the short film, all the new Kai content that taps into my greater SM Entertainment theories that we've talked about on the show, as well as some new theories I have, especially regarding his character in this music video universe, his character's relationship with Taemin's character. I have a lot of thoughts and theories, so we've got to break those down as well as talk about aespa's debut and overall SM Entertainment's universe and what the director of that universe has confirmed about it, what theories he has indicated are true, things like that. There's also a lot of news just in the music industry in general to catch up on regarding the longest YouTube video ever officially being made, and a lot of online events happening, a COVID outbreak at a K-pop set. There's a lot that's been happening lately, so without further ado, here are the top 10 news stories that you ought to know about in the world of K-pop and music in general. Topic 1 has got to be BTS, of course, because of the monumental week they just had. And we all know why. It's because I get special credit for discovering another lyrical Easter egg connecting their album eras. That hey ho sound from Telepathy is the same hey ho they sing in Microcosmos. It's also a sound effect in their school love affair trilogy era back from their early days. They continue to have these lyrical signposts of sorts that connect different musical eras, whether it's intentional or not. I find it a very, very cool way to, as a fan, just it forces you to stop and reflect on their discography, and so I love those moments where I'm mentally back into the mindset I was in when I first heard songs from their previous era. So anyway, another cool Easter egg that I didn't mention before in our BTS B album review episode, so I had to get it in this episode. And yeah, I guess there is also the little news update that they are Grammy nominated and making history doing it. BTS are nominated in the Best Pop Duo/Group Performance category, and they posted the cutest video of them reacting to finding out the news. It was just so wholesome and humble. Very, very excited. You could sense the anticipation as they waited to hear their names called. Not all of them were in that video because some were still asleep. Again, they're just so relatable still, despite being the biggest stars on the planet. Their official statement after getting the nomination was, quote, "We're indescribably happy thinking that our effort has come to fruition. We're fascinated and moved. We thank ARMY who gave us the chance to be nominated. Thinking fans will be happy makes us even happier. Now that we're nominated, we wish to win and look forward to doing so." That's what they've been saying lately in interviews promoting the new album and reacting to the Grammy nomination, are hinting that they look forward to winning, which is another really cool indicator of just how much they've grown as artists, and we already went on and on about that in the B album review episode, so I won't do it now, but I'm just a very proud fan, and it's very cool to see them stay humble, but also get more confidence in their music catalog and how it's up to the competition for sure. I really hope they win, and I have a feeling they might. I really do. This album B just reached number 1 on Rolling Stone's Top 200 Albums weekly chart, so it topped Megan Thee Stallion's new album and Ariana Grande's newest release. Now BTS is also the first K-pop group to ever have multiple singles in the top 10 of the UK charts, and this is BTS's 5th number 1 album on the Billboard charts. Also, Life Goes On, the single off of this new album, just passed 300,000 Shazams, so whenever people hear it in public and they want to use that app that tells them what song it is, they're doing that 300,000 times and realizing it's Life Goes On. BTS have been celebrating the release of their new album as well as the Grammy nomination on James Corden's show. They had back-to-back performances there, and they also performed on Good Morning America this past week, November 23rd. Lastly, there are some more BTS profiles and interview quotes that have been coming out lately that I just find really insightful, so I have to share them like I always do when there's a new BTS interview that really stands out to me. They have so many inspiring wise words, so here are some of their latest words of wisdom. RM said, quote, I've heard that there's this mask complex. 70% of so-called successful people have this mentally. It's basically this. There's this mask on my face, and these people are afraid that someone is going to take off this mask. We have those fears as well, but I said 70%, so I think it's very natural. Sometimes it's a condition to be successful. Humans are imperfect, and we have these flaws and defects, and one way to deal with all this pressure and weight is to admit the shadows. Basically referring to the fact that the majority of people in the world live hiding their true selves. They live under this shadow, essentially, without even realizing it. So you need to acknowledge that you've got these shadows and things you're keeping private versus your public self that you present to the world, and that there is that disconnect. And so finding ways to make peace with those different aspects of yourself is a way to make sure the shadows don't overwhelm you. I break this down, actually, it connects really well to what I talk about in the episode called House of Cards, K-A-R-D-S, if you want to check out that, shameless plug. But anyway, so he talks about those sociological concepts of you're living out life as kind of theater, and who you are in public is a mask, and who you are in private is who you are when the mask comes off. Here's another quote from him. One time I saw a dark cloud over the Seoul Tower while I was walking along the Han River. I was with a friend and we talked about where the border between where it's raining and where it's not might be, and suddenly we came up with the idea to run and find that spot. But after running for 10 minutes, the cloud was even further away than it had been. At that moment, the puzzle pieces snapped into place. You think you can go faster than that dark cloud? No, that's what I realized then. Maybe I can't do anything not Korean because that's what I am. I used to work late and then stay up all night when things weren't working out, thinking everything through, but now, like the saying, I realize maybe I can't do more than what I am. He basically goes on to say that, and what he's referring to are lyrics from one of the songs on the new album where they sing about trying to run faster than the rain and faster than the storm clouds, and realizing that's kind of impossible because clouds are always moving. Just in the physics of it doesn't work to catch up with a cloud because it's always going to keep going forward, and at some point the human cannot keep going forward, they have to take a break. Anyway, you try to do things that are sometimes out of your ability, and you have to recognize and step back and say you're only human, and certain things you're trying to look for in life you never needed to look for and don't need to because you cannot, and that is not what you need to feel all-powerful, feel fulfilled in some way. And so this is just one of the many examples, like I've talked about on previous BTS episodes of the show, where RM tells a personal story about a time he was with a friend, and that caused him to really reflect on his place in this world. Like the last story I told on the show, I believe, was a throwback to a previous tour, probably the Wings tour, where he was talking about how his friend called him just to say he was really happy, and that was it. Just, he wanted to share that he was feeling happy that day. He wanted to share that feeling of joy with someone. And so he went on to make the point about the meaning of life having to do with connecting with other humans. Quote is really talking about the song from the new album about the meaning of life having to do with being human in every form, and that means being a flawed person and not trying to outrun nature in a way. Stay humble and stay human, essentially. Later on, he was asked about his view of physical artworks and why he loves going to art museums, and I really like his answer. Quote, someone said, you don't have to buy this painting, it's yours so long as you're looking at it. What I most envied about painters was that even after they died, their work would be hanging up somewhere, maybe even in another country, still defining that space. Musicians leave behind their songs and videos too, but it's only through fine art that viewers in the future are able to completely meet artists from the past. That really left me in a lot of thought to think about how different types of artists feel fulfilled maybe to different extents because of the physical mark on the world, and it's harder for musicians to visualize the mark they're leaving on the world with their art because their art is not in the physical world so much as in people's minds and ears and everything. So that just left me in a lot of thought, not really for a broad takeaway, but just something about life worth thinking about and what legacy you're leaving and what the appeal of art in different forms can be. Given his recent shoulder surgery, his words take on new meaning now. Suga has been talking lately in interviews about how society treats physical versus mental pain and things like that, and calling out basically these toxic standards for masculinity and quote-unquote manning up in your life. He pointed out that when you are physically injured and have to cancel a plan or otherwise change your schedule because of it, people are like, okay, no worries, get better soon. But if you say you need a day because of mental health, people dismiss that or view that as weird or overreacting or whatever. It's a delegitimizing of your emotions instead of a validation of them. And Suga views that as being silly. Why would you prioritize one over the other when those forms of health, physical and mental, go so hand in hand? And so that's really sums up a lot of what BTS's music is. It's super vulnerable about anxiety, depression, etc., and views them as something that you might as well just be honest about, because it is just as important to talk about as a society, if not more so than physical health, because it's already been talked about without a stigma for so long. So that just really taps into what BTS's overall appeal is and their impact, which again goes back to the RM quote I just gave about feeling like they need to find a tangible way to show their impact. Remember that if we're going to reconceptualize what is like an ideal health status and how to like feel good in all areas of your life, and we're going to shift some of that emphasis away from physical health and more toward mental to make it more of a balanced thing in society, then also we need to shift where we place prestige and awards and priorities in terms of works of art and what those look like, because the most powerful works of art are not necessarily the ones in the physical world or the ones that are created and sparked by the things that you just listen to or hear about, the podcasts, the albums, all of that. So anyway, I'm just thinking through and reflecting on how we can reconceptualize art and true artwork and what makes for great art in all its forms. So I wanted to highlight this quote because I've been thinking about BTS's long-term impact and how they're viewed as really paving the way for this new era of music where everyone realizes music is this universal language with universal appeal and everything, and that humans at the end of the day, no matter what they speak, can understand and feel the music the same way. But they also have impacts in other ways that I think are talked about less, including how they're changing expectations of a masculine man and vulnerability and what it means to open up about feelings and not be discredited or brushed off for that, and viewing vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness, essentially. And I hope that mindset has a lasting impact on especially men in society. Last quote is not as deep, it's just super sweet, and it's from my bias, so I'm going to share it. Jimin said, quote, "It is something hard to define in just a few words, consolation, healing, thanks, inspiration, a lot of other things, and it can't be said in just one or two words. To the fans, we say we love you because it is, again, hard to express all these emotions in just one or two words, so we simply say we love you." And that's why he says that all the time, probably even more than the other members, that just, I love you guys is part of his broadcast, part of his concert tour monologues, all of that, because it's hard to find words, and that was just the sweetest quote I've ever heard. So, topic 2. The K-Pop end-of-year award show season is finally in full swing, and some of the winners have already been announced. The Asian Artist Award winners include Stray Kids for Best Music Video. For Best Choice Award, ITZY and the Boys. Best Female Musician, IZ*ONE. Best Male Musician, King Daniel. History of Songs Award, Super Junior. Stage of the Year, Monsta X, which is their first big award at this award show. Song of the Year, BTS's Dynamite. Twice won Artist of the Year. GOT7 won Performance of the Year. The Asia Celebrity Award went to Kane Daniel and Wei V. The award for Album of the Year went to NCT, and Best Artist went to NCT 127 and Mamamoo. Lastly, Best Pop Artist, referring to Western pop acts, that award went to Anne-Marie and Max. Not the Max from TVXQ, Max as in Max Schneider from the USA, who collaborated with Suga and who in general has great solo music that I highly recommend. So very happy with all of those winners. As for the Asian Popularity Award winners, in terms of the Popularity Award for Korea specifically, that went to King Daniel, IU, BTS and IZ*ONE. They always pick one male soloist, one female soloist, one boy group, and one girl group. Same for the overseas category. So for overseas popularity, the winners are Hwasa, King Daniel, 17, and Blackpink. And for entertainer in general, the award went to Park Ji-hoon and Luna's Chu. Topic 3 is the latest in virtual concerts and events. The All the K-Pop channel online concert event is going to be held December 12th. That one will feature AB6, Victon, Lee Jin-hyuk, Ace, and Dreamcatcher. So mark your calendars for the 12th for that. For December 6th, mark your calendar for the Mama live stream, which is brought to you by KCON. So check out KCON's site and Twitter account for more details going forward. VAV are teaming back up with Studio PAV once again for a digital Christmas concert. This one is for December 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which I believe is 8 p.m. Chicago time, Central Time. VVIP tickets for $79 include a video call, a Polaroid of one of the members, a signed poster, access to be part of the live video call audience during the show, and in general concert streaming access. The VIP ticket is only $39 compared to the VVIP that's $79, and it also brings a bunch of benefits, just not the actual video call, but you do kind of get entered into an auction, so you may get a video call. But that's the main difference between the tiers, and you get an extra Polaroid picture if you get the VVIP option. Either way, you can record a special Merry Christmas message video for VAV, and if you submit it, it may end up being played for them during the show, which I find a very cute addition to the show. If you just want to stream the show without any VIP benefits, that would be a $25 ticket. Make sure you go to Studio PAV's website for more information about that. Lastly, Park Ji-hoon has an online concert scheduled for December 13th. Topic 4, there are a lot of developments in the world of apps and other digital ways fans are trying to connect with the artists that they love and vice versa. Twice will make their debut in the Zepeto app December 18th. The upcoming K-pop app that will debut in early 2021 called Universe has more artists just added to their roster. Park Ji-hoon, 6, WJSN, Astro, and AB6. There is a private fan messaging app that's been around for a while called Dear You Bubble. Dear period U, letter U, bubble. And it's actually been around for a little while now, but it's expanding now for both iPhone and Android. And for the first time, JYP Entertainment artists are getting their own hubs in the Dear You Bubble app. Previously, it was just SM Entertainment, and then it was SM and FNC and Jellyfish Entertainment, but JYP Entertainment will now join the ranks, starting with 2 bands only, 2PM and Stray Kids. This launches today, recording day, but the app was already available to download November 25th, starting then, but now the community should be officially open if they were opened on schedule. Those bubble messages in the app used to be part of the other app Listen, LYSN, but this feature basically turned into its own app. So it's just messages you send the artists that go through their feed kind of like a text message stream would when you're looking through text that you need to read. The bubble messages you can send, the plus side is that you can send them to include pictures, videos, things like that, and your messages will auto-translate into English, or the artist's message will translate to English for you to read. But the downside is that you have a 30-character max at first. What's interesting is that the more you use the app, the longer you have it, the more characters you can use, up to 200. So you start with 30 characters, but eventually you can message up to 200 characters. What's also interesting is the ticketing scheme. This is not just a free app to message fans through, or artists to message your artists through, and for artists to reply to fans through. It costs $3.49. This is all US dollars, so you have to basically pay $4 for one ticket, they call it, $7 for 2 tickets, and $10 for 3 tickets, rounding up on all of those. That is the monthly pricing scheme. So $4 a month for a ticket. 1 ticket is needed for 1 bubble. So like if you're a fan of Stray Kids only, you just buy 1 ticket. But if you want to have access to send Stray Kids messages and 2PM, then you buy 2 tickets. And that would then be $14 a month. So it's an interesting way to do it, especially given the character limit. So I would love to know your listeners' thoughts about this, because I have mixed feelings. It's a cool system to really make it feel intimate, the messages you send personally to your favorite artists and they send it back to you. That's what the app kind of prides itself on, is that you're getting messages that the artists write themselves and not just some manager that pretends to be the artist. This is the artist for sure, at least they say. But at the same time, it really adds up financially, especially if you're a multi-fandom person, because, I mean, if you're in 3 fandoms already, you're spending like $30 a month on this service to send them 30 character messages at first. So I have mixed feelings about this. However, there do continue to be cheaper ways to interact with your favorite artists, like Weverse, which continues to expand. It started out with big hit entertainment artists, primarily BTS, but then it really expanded to include more K-pop groups, and now it's including Western artists. So first, Gracie Abrams joined, and then other Universal Music Group artists are apparently set to join Weverse with their own channels in the app as well, like Youngblood and Alexander23. So I have, again, mixed feelings about that. I'm curious what listeners think, because Weverse feels like its own thing, very different from Twitter or some other environment that can get quite toxic and vitriolic. The thing about Weverse is that you're not allowed to really talk about other artists in your hub. So, for example, if I was in a Stray Kids Weverse channel, I can't talk about how much I love 17 during the Stray Kids channel. That's not how it works, really. It's very artist specific. So you're just talking about Stray Kids with other Stray Kids fans. It's a way to really help avoid petty fights over who you're really a fan of and who you're not, or how you rank different artists and compare them to each other. It gets rid of a lot of sources of arguing online, and so it's really a more peaceful place to be than Twitter or other online environments. So I love the concept of the app. I just worry that the more it becomes available to more artists, the less it will have that feeling of just being this nice, wholesome, secret place to go talk with other fans. Once it becomes more common knowledge that this app is out there, I do kind of worry that will ebb away the original intent of the app to be like an alternative safe space. But we'll see. I mean, maybe not. It's just something I've been thinking about, so I'll keep you posted on any impacts of this app and its expansion towards Western artists and how much they'll interact with it going forward. Lastly, there is a new fan artist platform being developed by Hello28, the YouTube channel, and Kai Media. So Kai better be a part of this, otherwise he could sue. Just kidding, but not really. And currently, Kai Media and Hello28's new app platform will host Monsta X, AB6, and ITZY, but more will be announced in the future. I will update you on that service when more information comes out and when the app actually really kicks into high gear. But again, it really speaks to the proliferation of all these different apps that are suddenly trying to vie for your attention as the digital space gets more and more crowded due to in-person ways to connect with artists and fans back and forth are limited. Topic 5, some stat updates that I want to run through really quick, some milestones that different K-pop releases have reached. 200 million streams have now been reached for Blackpink and Selena Gomez's collab Ice Cream. 1 million views, Chanyeol's OST called Minimal Warm. The performance video for that already has 1 million views. 6 million views for Ace's Goblin/Favorite Boys. 25 million views on NCT U's Misfit video, which also just hit 1 million likes. 70 million views on TXT's Cat and Dog video. 75 million views on Baby Don't Stop by NCT U, which also, that song recently reached 1.5 million likes too. 100 million views for BTS's Dynamite, the B-side version, and GOT7's You Calling My Name. 200 million views on Red Velvet's video for Psycho, which is actually their fastest video to reach 200 million views. 350 million views for Twice's Heartshaker, 450 million views for iKON's Love Scenario, which is actually their first video to reach that milestone, 600 million views for BTS's Dynamite, 650 million views for Blackpink's How You Like That, and 1.4 billion views for Blackpink's Doo 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 Doo. You know the song. Other big updates, aespa's debut single Black Mamba reached the number 5 on the World Digital Singles Songs chart, and it reached number 1 on China's Double Q music chart. BTOB4U, the new subunit from the B2B group that I keep calling BTOB by accident, they reached number 1 with their album in 13 regions around the world. CN Blue's new mini album Recode topped iTunes in 10 different countries. Stray Kids just reached 10 million Instagram followers. MCND just reached 1 million TikTok followers. And Super M just reached 500,000, 500,000 VLive subscribers. Topic 6, military status updates. Ricky from Teen Top plans to enlist now in early 2021. Jinghu from Uptension just enlisted this past Monday, November 23rd. I believe that was a Monday. Yoon Ji-sun will be discharged officially mid-December. Ki Kwang from Highlight already just got discharged. Schumann from XO will be discharged December 6th, and he already started his final vacation. Won't return to base after that vacation time is used up, so he's kind of already discharged, but it will be official in early December. Lastly, the National Assembly just passed a preliminary revision to the Military Service Act. And this wouldn't really get rid of the required military enlistment for Korean men, but it would increase the maximum age you can be before having to enlist. And so that would actually be risen to 30 years old. So those who qualify, though, for that would have to contribute significantly to Korea's culture in some way or have some otherwise outstanding impact. So an Olympic athlete representing Korea, for example, or BTS members, for example, that have really spread Korean culture worldwide and increased the interest in the billions, really. The tourism industry in South Korea really owes a lot to BTS, frankly. We've talked about that before on the show. So this preliminary revision is preliminary, so it's not official. There's no guarantee. Amendments to the military requirements have been issued time and time again over time, often citing BTS as a prime example of people who maybe deserve an exemption from the required military time because they've shown their pride in Korea in some other way. But the measures haven't really passed in the past. If that's different now, given BTS's recent Grammy nomination and Billboard chart achievements and other Western music scene impacts, is to be determined. But so fingers crossed that we don't have to say goodbye to Jin for a little while, for a couple years now. So we will see what happens with that. Topic 7, legal drama updates. The Burning Sun scandal, the latest from that is that Yang Hyun-suk was ordered to pay 15 million won in a fine. That was due to the illegal overseas gambling charge only, not all the other stuff. In terms of the vote rigging scandal that caused certain people to enter the winning groups that didn't actually earn it, but the votes were rigged in their favor, that whole scandal with the Produce 101 show and Mnet. The latest in that is that Mnet issued a statement the other day saying that they have either finished negotiating or are currently talking with and continuing to negotiate with all the affected parties. And the names have been revealed of the former contestants who were only eliminated as a result of the vote rigging. So the focus of this really has not been on who unfairly got into groups, but about who unfairly was kicked out of the odds. One of those victims was Baekhyun from New East, and Pledis Entertainment expressed gratitude for this new transparency from Mnet, but also indicated in their statement that it's a little too late. Meanwhile, IZ*ONE's comeback schedule, which is set for early December, has been unaffected by this controversy. If you recall, in previous waves of this drama taking over the K-pop news world, IZ*ONE has been a frequent target of a lot of just vitriol and general concern from fans, and then vitriol from haters, but concern from fans about their future. And if this whole drama is just too negative and draining on their reputation and will cause the group to disband, but so far they still are remaining super strong, and I'm not worried about them breaking up or anything, frankly, because they just make so much money through especially their Japanese promotions. They're so popular in Japan, and I just don't think the company would disband them at this point in their career. But anyway, they seem to be unaffected by the scandal, and they're going to promote as if it's not going on. Hopefully they don't get asked about it during press conferences for the new album, just for their sake. I'm sure they don't want to talk about it, and they want to talk about their new work. Topic 8, new business partnerships, new management, all those kind of updates. Super Junior just signed with ICM Partners, who will now represent Super Junior everywhere that is outside of Asia. This is huge. ICM Partners has worked with Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, some who are not singers, Megan Fox, Orlando Bloom, John Cena. It's a really huge representative company globally, and I'm very excited for what that means for Super Junior. Meanwhile, Chunha just signed with 88 Rising. She's the first explicitly labeled as K-pop act to join this label, and the goal is overtly for her to be, quote, to fulfill, quote, the company's plan to bring her to a more global audience, unquote. She also recently released this single with the DJ Rehab, spelled R3HAB, and that just reminded me of how Sophia Carson also collaborated with Rehab, and then I started thinking about how cool a collab with Sophia and Chunha would be, just throwing that out into the universe. Topic 9, updates on the Hallyu wave and how Korean culture continues to spread and influence other countries. Tencent invested earlier this year in Platinum Games. Remember, we've talked about on the show, Tencent is the big Chinese music company that's essentially like the iTunes, Apple Music giant of China. And they just invested in Platinum Games, which is a Japanese game developer, for an undisclosed amount. But it's still interesting showing the inter-Asian cultural exchange that's happening this year. That continues in Japan and between Japan and South Korea as well. One of the leading music retailers in Japan is called HMV, and they just released their list of the top 20 best-selling K-pop albums of 2020. They announced the top 20, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to share the top 10 with you. Number 10, 17's An Ode. Number 9, NCT Resonance Part 1. Number 8, Luna with Midnight or 0 o'clock, however you want to say it. It's technically 0 o'clock, but whatever. Number 7, Twice with Fanfare. Number 6, BTS Map of the Soul 7, The Journey. Number 5, BTS Map of the Soul 7. Number 4, 17 semicolon. Number 3, 17 24 hours. Number 2, 17 Hangare. Number 1, 17 Fallen Flower. Naturally, I love this list. Speaking of ways that South Korean culture continues to be popular in Japan, the Naver search engine is making a third attempt to re-enter the Japanese search engine market, and this time they feel more confident than they did during the first 2 attempts. Quick backstory, so Naver was out of Japan in 2005, and they tried to bring it back into the search engine market as a rebranded thing, but that ended up being shut down in 2013. The exact timing of this new rollout for this third attempt is not clear, but it is a go officially. In 2019, this app called Line became the most used messenger in Japan, and now that Line has signed a contract with Yahoo Japan for this merger, the biggest messaging app combined with a Yahoo search engine, the odds are now better for Naver too. They see potential in possibly having their own kind of merger with a messaging app going forward. So in the tech world, this is a big deal, and I will keep you posted with a SparkNotes version of what's going on in that space. Other programming updates, Netflix just launched a separate content office specifically in Korea, so keep your eyes on that. Also, Fox just bought the rights for an American remake of the show Lotto Singer from MBN. So again, keep your eyes out for that as TV developments continue to be remade in other countries. I love this trend flipped on its head of from other countries making remakes and their own versions of Western movies and TV shows to vice versa, where the USA is copying them. It's about time. Speaking of the main show in this category, The Masked Singer continues to expand its influence massively. The total number of spin-off versions is going to surpass 30 very soon as 2 new versions, one in Norway and one in Switzerland, begin filming in Europe. There are 19 localized versions that have just popped up of The Masked Singer show within the past year alone, and a unique version of the show is currently taking place in 31 different countries once Norway and Switzerland are added to that total. The Norway remake of Masked Singer will be called Maskarama, which I personally like more, but the Switzerland one's a little less clever. It's just called The Masked Singer Switzerland. The Norwegian version was reported after its premiere to have received 46.9% episode ratings, which doesn't mean it got like a Rotten Tomatoes score of that. It just means that the amount of people viewing television that night at that time who were watching the Masked Singer show Maskorama in Norway was close to 50% of that TV watching audience, which is a huge chunk of the audience considering how many other things they may have been watching at the time. So a strong start for the Norwegian version, and presumably it will also kick off in Switzerland, especially given the potential for The Masked Singer to do so well in Europe because it has those Eurovision over-the-top elements to it. Remember, the original King of the Masked Singer show started in 2015 and is currently in its 4th season, so it's doing pretty well, but is still relatively new even to its home country of South Korea. More than 5 countries are reportedly also seeking to develop their own versions of the show in 2021, so that number will expand to 36 versions around the world. Very interesting reality show development that's honestly not surprising. I feel like it's the light, silly entertainment the world needs right now. So keep your eyes on the Masked Singer remakes, but never forget that they started in Korea. Topic 10, COVID-related updates in the world of K-pop. Six has canceled their first ever headlining concert that was set to start soon, and Super M's Japanese leg of their world tour has officially been canceled instead of postponed. The increase in social distancing restrictions in South Korea lately is the primary source of these cancellations. There have also been a lot of scares in the past week at these weekly K-pop music shows because certain people who have been in the facility, either performers or staff members, have tested positive, and that caused everyone who was at that studio that day, from hairstylists to costume designers to the artists themselves to the managers, all of them, to all have to be tested and isolated until they get their test results back. And so it's led to a lot of scary moments. Nancy from Momoland had to quarantine after finding out she had run into and crossed paths with someone who tested positive. Luckily, her test came back negative, and she planned to just resume promo activities with her group soon, but those are kind of up in the air now because some K-pop music show recordings have been abruptly canceled due to these increasing outbreaks among staff and artists. Also, Victon and their whole staff, Play-M Entertainment agency staff, they were all tested for COVID. They all came back negative, but they have postponed their comeback for the time being. Several K-dramas and Korean movies being filmed have temporarily stopped production because of positive cases on set. This includes Jisoo's from Blackpink, her acting debut in Snowdrop, and also in general variety shows and for talk shows as well, those have been halted for the time being. For example, former BAP member Yeonjae was on the show Mr. Queen, and one of the extras on set tested positive, and that was enough to require everyone to have to isolate. Yeonjae did test negative for the virus, luckily, but a lot of these scares are happening as the spread seems to increase in the greater South Korean area and not just in certain isolated sections. Unfortunately, there is a big positive case that has really kind of shocked the K-pop world, I think, and kind of startled K-pop fans because we're used to hearing that the results came back negative, but this time not so much. Beto from Uptension just the other day tested positive for COVID-19, and so everyone who was on the set of the music shows that day had to get tested and are all isolating and awaiting the results. Everyone from NCT to aespa to Woods, Stray Kids, Narazo, so many other acts are quarantining and waiting for their results. So far, everyone who has reported their results have said they're negative, so Beto hasn't officially been considered to have spread it to anyone that has been noted yet, but we will see, fingers crossed. Meanwhile, Pentagon has announced that their online concert is postponed because one of their own was interacting with someone who tested positive, and so all the members of Pentagon are isolating out of an abundance of caution. My thoughts on this are that I honestly wouldn't be surprised if certain end-of-year K-pop award shows get canceled or just very, very much changed in their format, because more and more K-pop performance events and stuff have been in person over time, but now that there seems to be another wave, or at least just in general, a daily, day-after-day increase in COVID cases in South Korea, I have a feeling they'll have to scrap those plans or just dramatically alter them, because right now the spread is just getting excessive, and if everyone's going to have to keep isolating like this, it just makes a lot more sense to do more things virtual and not have the weekly music shows throughout December, but we'll see what they end up doing. I do respect how fast they contact trace and isolate a lot of people widespread so that this doesn't spread, and how the rapid testing is going well there, so that makes it a little more likely that they can still have in-person performances every week, but I do think the risk is increasing as we get into winter. Some quick miscellaneous headlines before we get to my most exciting topics of the day. G-Dragon is collaborating with Nike once again on a new shoe. This is called Paranoise 2.0. The last one was just Paranoise. And what's really cool about these sneakers G-Dragon designed is that they have black paint on the top, but over time what peels off ends up revealing this like graffiti style artwork underneath it. G-Dragon designed himself, which we literally love to see. Speaking of we love to see it, Twice made their official debut performing on Colbert's show. That will air tonight. As of recording time, it'll be tonight, November 30th, but the dance performance is already out on YouTube, so wink wink. Go watch that after you're done listening to the show. Also, Yuna from Girls' Generation just got her own personal YouTube channel. Subin just got hospitalized for some minor injuries after a 4-car collision. She's going to be okay, but she did suffer those minor injuries while she was driving home from the set of Miss Back. In better news, Blackpink are going to be named Variety's Group of the Year. So December 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. You can watch the award acceptance live stream through Variety's YouTube page. Some 17 updates. Dino just released his latest dance video for Thin White Lies by 5SOS. The 8 just released a behind-the-scenes video for his art film. We have a home run choreography video now out. The members of 17 guest starred on Idol Wonderland, and they won a Bonsang at the 2020 APAN Music Awards. 17 will perform the Korean version of Falling Flower for the very first time. Mark your calendars, December 12th at the Fact Music Awards. Lastly, Woozi had a special birthday celebration V-Live for fans where he helped compose a song alongside Carat. So we all sort of pitched in ideas and he wrote his own birthday song, and it was just a really cute song with lyrics about your smile makes my day, I'll always be by your side. All of the stuff that 17 songs talk about, like in songs like Hug and other more sentimental songs, but fans were sending him those messages through V-Live and he turned them into a song. And so that is your dose of adorable news for the day. After the break, we've got to talk about what is going on in the world of Quarantunes, which I have changed the name to because it's not going to be just about life in quarantine anymore, but I do want to keep the segment of the show where I talk about just developments in the music world at large and the music industry that I find interesting. So I'll call it Stay Tuned or Tuning Out or Tuning In. That's TBD, but anyway, we're going to talk about the music industry after the break. The invention that I would like to highlight today on the show is a great gift for the holiday season. It's called Culture Tags, and it's basically a game that will test how well you know culture and hashtags and what acronyms really stand for, how much you speak internet lingo, and you have to guess before the timer runs out a certain amount of questions is essentially the gist of the project. This is a Kickstarter project, so if you go to culturetags.com, you can find more information. Some fundraising targets have already been met, but a few more for advanced play features to become available with this game. Those advanced targets have not been met yet, so feel free to contribute money to this idea. This Culture Tags game is also going to be available in Target stores nationwide very soon. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it's a very clever idea. It's something that I hope you support for Giving Tuesday / any Saturday should be Small Business Saturday, so support up-and-coming indie game developers, please, and check out Culture Tags. YouTube just created the first ever infinite music video, meaning it will last basically forever. You can play and watch the music video for eternity, essentially. This is a thing that YouTube created using these AI technology and algorithms and all of that for the song Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. It is this blend basically using AI technology that combines a bunch of different fan covers of bad guy together to create this visual that is endlessly shifting. And you can watch this now, it's already out on YouTube. It creates this visual effect of different bad guy covers, kind of like a screensaver, so it lasts for a long time and you can just watch all these different fan covers of bad guy with all these different genres to them and everything blended together in these combinations that are unique every time you watch the video, which is why it's viewed as this infinite thing. Although if you want to get super technical, the actual amount of fan cover content that is involved is 10.5 million seconds, which can last 1.47 times 10 to the 100th years. So you could watch this video for 1.47 times 10 to the 100th years before the combinations start repeating themselves of the fan cover videos. You could watch it just randomly. That's what you first watch when you turn on the video. You're just watching random combinations of fan covers, but if you want certain subcategories of covers like sign language or a dance cover or a certain instrument being used in a cover, something like that, even parody versions, you can go to different subcategories specifically and watch those combinations as well. But even there, the combinations will constantly be refreshed. YouTube's statement about this project said, quote, "To create this experience, Google Creative Lab had to perfectly align the audio from thousands of videos with different tempos, instruments, keys, and styles. Conventional algorithms couldn't do the trick alone, so we turned to machine learning. For videos that deviated from the original track, we built a neural network that could predict matches between covers in the original. With this data, we were able to line up all kinds of different covers and switch seamlessly between them." If they're going to do these infinite videos for more artists in the future are to be determined, but it's a very clever way to get you to keep watching hours and hours of YouTube. Meanwhile, Amazon Music is also getting into the virtual market more and more. Their first CGI virtual influencer of sorts is being used as an avatar to promote Justin Bieber's latest single, which will be some cover of Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. Not sure if that will be officially released as a single, but that's something he sang for his avatar to sing for him. We've talked about the CGI world at length on the show, and of course on my website, my big research project about these virtual characters and their impact on society is already out, so not going to get into it again here, but just wanted that shameless plug, and I thought that story was interesting. The ways pop culture is going digital don't always necessarily stay digital. Sometimes they are merging with the physical world, and that is the case with the latest esports arena that was built, the first one to be built outside of Seoul in Busan. This location is actually in a tower with a lot of other buildings in it, but 2 of the floors of the building hold this esports arena now, which includes one main arena that seats 330 people at a time, as well as 2 sub-arenas that are much smaller, and separate areas for players, for viewers, and for staff of the esports events that you can watch. Essentially, people play video game versions of sports. There are also 30 sports barstool type seats you can get, and 8 premium VIP suite box seats you can get. This was a 3 billion won investment, and the mayor of Busan issued a statement indicating this strong desire for South Korea to gain this global recognition as a superior esports hub, saying, quote, "Busan is the city that made G-Star into a global game exhibition, and Busan is an indie game mecca where developers can work in a good environment." Basically saying that Korea, to keep its reputation for leading the world in esports culture, they thought it was best to pick Busan as the location to expand out of Seoul because of the environment in general and the people who work there and the indie gamers that are really passionate who live there and work there. The government decided to start investing more in esports in Korea more aggressively ever since 2018, and so in just 2 years now we have 3 of these big esports arenas built, 2 of them in Seoul and now 1 in Busan. So keep an eye on that industry as sports goes virtual, especially concerning the COVID risk of contact sports. That's been an issue with USA athletes for sure. I'm going to save my personal thoughts and reaction to aespa's single and music video for a later episode, and I'll explain why at the very end of the show. But I do want to talk about aespa's debut just in the context of what it could mean culturally, what the implications are of the concept, and how it ties into what we've been talking about this digital year of music and artists digitizing more of their work. So Lee Sun-soo, who runs SM Entertainment, just gave an interview talking about what SM Entertainment does culturally and what its goals are going forward with this group aespa. So he said it's basically a 3-step plan, although these 3 steps are viewed as cyclical and not necessarily just A to B to C. There's culture creation, culture development, and culture expansion. Culture creation has to do with actually producing content, casting people for that content, training them, managing them, all of that. Culture development is actually working with them after they're cast, after the production gets ahead of itself, after the managing really kicks into high gear. Once those elements are there to use, then cultural development occurs. And lastly, cultural expansion, which is promoting it all over the place. It's a little like the strategy we talked about in the episode called the SM Entertainment Universe, or the episode called Boa-fied Pop Star. That's one that breaks down SM Entertainment's history of how they promote artists. And he talks in those episodes, I mentioned how he talks about the localization to globalization back to localization strategy SM Entertainment has always had, where they like to make content that is just local. It has that flavor to it, but then they globalize the appeal and spread it. And then once it spreads, they can localize it again and personalize it for different parts of the world, maybe because there's like an English version of the song, or just overall different elements in the music video, depending on what country the video is in, things like that. And so that goes along with his 3-step plan here with culture creation, development, and expansion, keeping his eyes wide on globalizing the groups that SM Entertainment creates, which has been, needless to say, successful so far. He reminded us in this interview, and has in past interviews as well, he wants to keep reminding people that aespa is an 8-member group. It's not a 4-member girl group. It's 4 humans and 4 avatars in this group. So their digital selves are viewed as members of the group as well. That will show up in the music videos probably more and more, because they kind of made just brief cameos in the debut video. But the merging of digital and human characters is an intentional concept that SM Entertainment has been trying to work with. This group has long been in the works, and he says its concept has really been forming over time thanks to the storylines that other artists are forming regarding these different worlds blurring together. A really key quote from this interview I found fascinating is, quote, "A worldview isn't just a storyline, but the climax of culture technology. It's intellectual property that gives fans something to connect to. World building is now an essential part of K-pop. SM's worldview is no longer restricted to a single team, and all its past and present artists share one big world together. We're in the process of creating that culture." So he's basically talking about the SM Entertainment music video universe and how it's intentionally layered and gives fans a lot of interpretable meaning, a lot of ambiguity to play with and think about. Theorizing over SM Entertainment symbolism and messages in their music videos is very intentional, and very much there are those connections intentionally left between different SM artists' works. You're supposed to find those connections and really engage with their material in that intensive way, and that is a very intentional strategy that he clarified as intentional in this interview. And this continues to be shown through Kai's solo debut, which it's finally time to talk about. And if you need a refresher on the overall SM Entertainment Universe concept, like I said, the episode called The SM Entertainment Universe will do well for that. I also have an EXO music video universe specific episode. The Empire Strikes Back talks about Super M and Kai's character in that. There are a lot of episodes already where I've touched on this topic of the different realms of existence and how this is kind of like a dream within a dream within a dream, or a movie within a dream within a movie, or a stage production. This is all a film or all not real. That whole concept that SM Entertainment seems to be going with for its artists. So I won't go into it again here, but that does seem to be at play still for Kai's solo debut is what I'll say. First of all, I noticed some little details that connect his story to other solo artists and groups' stories just in the teaser images. Like, and this may be a reach, but the garage setting, the truck full of flowers, like the bus full of flowers from NCT videos, the scene where in the promo pic where he is in front of a big fan, that is something that Yuta was just in front of for NCT. Little details like that, I think, were intentional nods to other SM artists. I'm really happy with this release because of how it lets Kai play more of a character, because if this whole SM universe were just a big, long movie, Kai's character would be that weird side character that everyone's like, what is he doing? It's like they didn't know what to do with him in the cast. Because in past EXO videos, Kai has been just that guy that's like put in a room by himself to dance on the table or something. He's just kind of dancing off in a corner, or just dancing as his whole thing. Like in the Lucky One video where he basically dances as the evil scientists of sorts descend upon him. He thinks he could dance his way out of trouble. I don't know. His character has a lot more depth to it now that he gets to be a solo act, and so I'm very appreciative of that. Where Kai's character does seem to get to thrive has been when he is in that intersection. If we're talking about different levels of existence and trying to break the matrix and everything, Kai is at that line of an earthquake or something. I'm not using the metaphor right, but he's at the intersection of illusion and reality. I view Kai's character as kind of like at that doorway that we talked about in NCT episodes, where he's right between the worlds and can go between them of reality and surreality. And so Kai's character now in this solo debut reminds me of the Kai we got in the Tempo era EXO, where he's playing the keyboard and the keyboard keeps glitching, kind of like it's in some sort of computerized world, but it keeps popping into the real world at the same time. I also think his character in Tempo is key to keep in mind for who his character truly is as a solo artist in this universe as well, because remember in the Tempo video, there was this scene where suddenly Kai was surrounded by that circle of spotlights, which is just like the circle of spotlights he was in during his intro film for the solo debut. Just saying. Let's talk a little more first, before we get into the new album, about Kai's role previously in Super M. In Jopping, his character showed his powers to teleport. That's his main power for the EXO world and Super M. So in his character intro for Super M, he was in this environment with a parking lot, and there were all these little fires everywhere in the parking lot, and cars turned over and a lot of wreckage, and he teleported out of that scene in the nick of time, a microsecond away from the car that was falling from the sky to hit him. And the car crashes, but he finally popped out of the scene. And then at the end of his intro video, we saw Taemin, an image of him in the room with all the movie projectors and movie players and stuff. He looks like he's the one that's controlling this action, being the puppeteer of everything happening. So you could infer that he was saving Kai in the nick of time. Why would he save Kai? If Taemin was the evil mastermind, I will get to that when I get to my larger theory. But keep in mind that teaser video had a lot of details in it that are worth noting. And then in the Jopping video, Kai's character is running slow-mo through that Matrix atmosphere. Looks a lot like the setting that Winwin fell through that black hole with all the glitching techno colors surrounding it in Simon Says. So Kai's character ends up teleporting into the desert location in Jopping where the other Super M members already are, so he's the last to join them because he was trying to get there. He had to get there from the other world, presumably. In that video, he dances in this circle and around in a circle outside, which just looked like the lit-up circle setting from his intro video for his solo debut as well. A lot of Easter eggs I could go on and on about, but the bottom line right now is that I'm just saying that a lot of little details about the setting and the props in EXO and Super M content for Kai transferred over to Kai's solo character story. And in the video for One from Super M, Kai is in this room with all these different mirrors, so he's literally facing himself, and on the floor there is some pentagon symbol, and it reminded me, I know it's not a pentagon, but it reminded me of the hexagon type symbol that EXO is represented by, their logo, and I just think those shapes are indicative of something. Before Kai released the video for the single from this debut album, Kai released a short film that included a preview of all of the songs on the album. And that preview collection wasn't like a mini movie of sorts, and each scene has some key takeaways from it that it's time to break down. First of all, he starts with the video for Upside Down, and he is trapped in this glass box in that video. Remember, we've talked a lot about glass boxes being a key symbol in the SM universe, so no surprises there. This glitch is what triggers the appearance of a new scene where he is now suddenly in this desert environment staring into a full-length mirror. So he went from being in the trap box to staring at a mirror outside. Hello Stranger is the next song we see a video for, where Kai is in this room and he's dancing with himself in a way. He's dancing with his image that appears in the smoke cloud in front of him. So it's like a mirror that's shadowing him and mirroring his every move. And so he dances with himself in a way, and then that switches back and forth between that and then him dancing with someone behind him, like a backup dancer who is masked, and like his shadow of sorts, copying his every move. For the song Reason in this video, Kai is in this setting, like a fancy gold palace setting at a fancy dining hall. He looks really intrigued by whatever these rich guys at his table are talking about. A flash of light and a flick of his wrist throwing a cloth behind him is all it takes for glass box to appear again, where another Kai dressed more casually is dancing, and no one seems to notice him in this scene, so it's like he's from another dimension or something, and no one can see that Kai. They just go about their dinner ignoring it. The amnesia scene in this video for the song Amnesia features train tracks, and it's the dark night, and the main thing I would notice about that scene is just the train track and the fact that there's one single spotlight shining on him and the rest of the scene is dark. For MMHH, that scene about the song is really showing and emphasizing the fact that this whole video is a scene within a scene within a scene, because it keeps zooming in or zooming out to reveal a different layer of another dimension at play here. It makes sense when you watch the video. Nothing on Me is when the zooming in effect finally ends, and Kai's back in that desert setting where the story started. He's again dancing in sync with someone who's following his every move and is again wearing a face covering so you can't see who they are, who is in the mirror. So he's dancing with someone who's not him but is mimicking his reflection in a way symbolic of his reflection. Lastly, Ride or Die. That video features the row of spotlights around him like from the Tempo video. And that is also when Kai is back to that classic top hat look that he wore in his EXO intro video 8 years ago, which I thought was a long-term throwback to his old self at the end of this video. Adding to that theory of mine is the fact that the EXO logo shape of sorts is formed out of the spotlights eventually. Then the whole mini-film ends with Kai standing in this garage setting or something. It's revealed he's in some sort of construction site type car setting, garage setting. I really think it's basically a movie set or a TV show set that he's in, which goes to my overall broad theory. In the video for he's sitting on this edge of a tall building at the corner, and the angle that he's sitting at looks a lot like that corner angle of the NCT 2018 pictures we talked about before, and the same angle that Taemin crouches down in his promo pictures. The fact they're all standing on a top corner of a building at one point in their solo careers, or group careers or whatever, that feels like an intentional nod to each other's stories, just saying. Kai is also surrounded by these objects levitating in the air at one point. He's surrounded by green light. There are a million other little details I noticed that are similar and reminiscent to NCT videos to keep in mind. He's also in a glass box at one point in this video again, and now it's filling up with water, so he's feeling extra trapped, twice as trapped at this point in the video. He dances at one point in front of an elevator that looks like the time machine in the NCT universe, and Mr. Metal is back in this story. If you don't know who Mr. Metal is, you should go check out my latest episode about NCT where I break it down. I think a lot of cinema fans should check out this video because it really does have some very cool visual elements to it that feel like it could be a full-length movie this environment could be in. It's got the city streets with all of these high-tech, colorful, glitching images around them and lining them. It's got all these little robotic fly-type things going around in the air, kind of like the Snitch in the Harry Potter Quidditch games. It's got these big levitating structures of sorts, like spaceships suspended in the air, but they look a lot more militarized than a spaceship, for sure. So it's a very unique setting wherever he is, and clearly it's not, like, the regular Earth. So he's in this other world at some points. Time for my 3 main theories about what all of this means for Kai's story and what's the overall message. my first theory is not really a theory, but just kind of a confirmed layer of meaning in this story. Kai pointed out in the press conference talking about this new release that his fashion choices are super intentional. He loves to have a hand in his wardrobe choices a lot to really show what he wants to convey through outfits. And his latest example of that is he points out that in this video he starts out wearing white, which is meant to represent kind of a blank slate. He's still thinking things through. And then the climax of the short film features him in red, which he views as now his thoughts are full, essentially. His ideas have come to fruition, have really reached the max that they need to be, if that makes sense. So given the fact that fashion is so key to his character, I don't think it's too far-fetched to assume that the bucket hat type of headwear he wears in his new video is an intentional nod to the bucket hat he wears in the EXO Tempo video, just saying. Second thing to talk about. I think, especially given the leader of SM Entertainment's latest comments about how this has been such a years in the making storyline, I don't think it's far-fetched to assume that Kai's character role in the very first EXO intro video of his years ago was intentionally the way that it was, that the symbols intentionally were meant to be carried out all these years later still, that this storyline that Kai just released was in the works maybe even that long ago. Because remember, in Kai's intro video, when we first saw him introduced to the world as a member of EXO, he had that top hat that he wears at the end of Ride or Die this time. He has this pocket watch of sorts, which made me think of the concept of time and how he's bending the space-time continuum in a way. And he's dancing in water in that scene, and now water is filling up the box that he is stuck in. All of those details just feel like they are intentionally brought back. Third theory is a lot more fleshed out and has a lot more to do with not just spotting connections, but actually this is a more in-depth theory of mine. But I'm going to try to condense it as best I can while still explaining it well. My theory is that in this music video universe, Taemin and Kai's characters are meant to be against each other. Like a very ultimate Kai versus Taemin battle is going to happen. They're pitted against each other, they're the enemies in this situation, but they also need each other in some ways. First of all, remember that in the Super M intro video, we saw that Taemin was basically saving Kai last minute when he didn't need to, but it kind of reminded me of like Voldemort in Harry Potter, who like doesn't want anyone else to kill Harry because he wants to do it himself. Not that Taemin would kill Kai, I'm just saying his character in the story wants to deal with Kai for himself, and so he doesn't want whoever may have accidentally dropped a car on the scene, maybe another character with super strength or some other superpower, to get in the way and get the glory, essentially. Second connection I see is the setting with the mirror, where Taemin has music videos as well, where he's in a desert or a field, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, looking at a full-length mirror at himself and questioning things or otherwise just not recognizing himself, looking confused when he looks in the mirror. And it's kind of like a looking glass symbolism there where it's kind of, I think, a portal to another world, and Kai is also in that sort of situation. So your enemies often have a lot more in common with you than you wish they did, and that leads to your resentment towards them, and I think that's the case with these characters. Third connection. Taemin's character, especially lately, has really had a lot of fire symbolism. Walking past those gates of hell, essentially, in the idea video, and in general, I mean, he's got a song called Flame of Love. He controls fire in the Goodbye video. Fire is a huge thing for Taemin's character. And Kai's character has been in water in the glass box, dancing on water in his intro video. Water seems to play a key role in his story. So, of course, who represents fire and who represents water are going to be juxtaposed against each other. Fourth thing, in that fancy environment, that fancy dining room of sorts, when Taemin was in that environment for the Press Your Number video, it's not the exact same environment, but it's kind of similar. It's a very regal-looking, expensive mansion of sorts they're in. Anyway, when Taemin was in that environment, he was pretty much thriving. But when Kai is in there, he's just looking out of place, looking like he's the eager beaver trying to fit in there, and he suddenly stops and sees himself trapped on the other side of the room, this other version of him from another dimension, possibly. jealousy maybe about status is a part of their conflict. I think the characters may also be against each other because one of them has something on the other that we don't know about yet in the story, or do, and I just didn't catch it in the story. They've got a lot of layers of resentment towards each other, I think, that will come to a head. And I really think something big is about to happen in the story because of, in the very end of the video, the landscape literally freezes over. The rock that was rising out of the ground suddenly freezes over and grows icicles, and everything around the environment is now frozen. So we had the water and fire battling it out, and now it's all just ice. And so maybe Taemin will come in there and melt everything. I don't know, but I feel like something big is about to happen, because you could argue that hell literally just froze over. So the big takeaways I have from this new album, other than it's just a really good album, are that you've got to keep an eye on Kai's fashion choices because they're very intentional. You've got to keep an eye on scenes where there's more than one of Kai, where different versions of him are there. And you've got to keep in mind situations and scenes where Kai is glitching in and out of focus, or dealing with objects that are glitching in and out of focus, and how he keeps zapping in between different dimensions. He's a time traveler of sorts. He teleports to different places, and that's how he tries to defy the ultimate evil mastermind in the universe, which is Taemin's character. I would also keep an eye out for the confrontations to become more overt between Taemin and Kai. Again, I'm just predicting and theorizing here, so if I'm wrong, don't sue me, but to me, all arrows seem to be pointing to that, and so keep an eye out for their characters to show their friction more and more in the future. I definitely think that is a part of the story, but we shall see. Let me know what your interpretations are of Kai's universe. I think it's a really interesting development to the story we've been talking about on the show, and I will keep you posted if there is more revealed as Kai promotes this new album. When the next episode of this show airs is a little up in the air just because I'm about to reach, this is episode 98, and I'm about to reach the 100th episode of the show, and I'm working on getting some very special guests for that episode. So fingers crossed, it's such a long shot, but it's not impossible right now. I don't want to say anything else yet, but something may be about to happen. So please cross your fingers for me. It would be so exciting and rewarding after 100 long episodes to get a very special guest on the show. So I'm hoping to have that guest early December or later December. Anytime they're willing to, I will make sure I have time for them. So if that doesn't work out, though, I have backup plans of ideas and things I want to talk about before the year ends. I've got my best of 2020 list to go through and break down the best K-pop that came out this year, and best J-pop and C-pop, and even some Western pop I'll probably talk about. But before those countdown lists, I hope to have an interview. So anyway, stay tuned. Depending on how that works out, episode 99 will be spaced out at a different time, depending on what makes sense. And then episode 100 will hopefully be super special. So just keep an eye out for new content coming very shortly. Very excited and cautiously optimistic that this will happen. You'll catch me again, probably not till Sunday, for a new episode of How to Stan. Thank you for listening, and go check out Kai's new album.